What is going on, Amazon sellers? Happy Sunday and welcome back to the weekly Amazon Q&A show where we share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, and of course, we answer your guys' questions about selling on Amazon. So if you are curious about retail arbitrage, perhaps you're having a bit of an odious online arbitrage journey, or maybe there is you want to dive into wholesale, or perhaps you just have a Keepa quandary, well, drop it in the chat and we will help. And we're going to be getting to the questions earlier than normal. So go ahead and start dropping them in a little bit earlier. For those of you who may be new here or happened upon the channel, my name is Chris Grant. And to my right is my Jeremiacal co-host, Chris Rasick. Chris, how's Sunday treating you, man?
Sunday is not too bad. What a Sunday though, man. I had NFL football on, had Ryder Cup on. It's the final day of the baseball regular season. It's a heck of a sports weekend, that's for sure. It's not all shaken out quite the way we want to, but
the U.S. team is having a rough go of it, and the crowd was letting letting those folks from the UK know that they did not care for them.
Yeah, they're putting up a heck of a fight. They just fell short not too long ago. So, yeah, but we wish we would have shown up earlier. But yeah, the behavior leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, I would agree. I like that golf has gotten a little bit more. It's not all golf claps anymore. However, there is a line. If I go and watch a tournament, I certainly do not want to feel like I'm standing around a bunch of soccer hooligans. Let's leave that for the soccer pitch rather than the greens.
Yeah, I mean, you want a certain degree of a home field advantage, when they play the Ryder Cup in the U.S. But hitting players' wives with beer bottles and stuff, that's obviously crossing a line.
I agree. All right, let's dive in. Hey, Deborah. Hey, Polly. Hey, Juan, EB, Luke. What's going on? Yeah, if you guys have questions, let us know. We've got hopefully we have some answers, and of course we have some news. So we'll get to your guys' questions as soon as we get through the first piece of news. Last Monday I don't want to say excited. Excited is not the right term, but I was sort of expecting this Law and Order-esque courtroom battle between the FTC and Amazon. But the FTC's opening arguments in the trial that started last week for what the FTC considered tricking consumers into becoming Prime members and making it almost impossible to cancel. Well, those arguments must have been incredible, because 3 days in, and Amazon caved and agreed to a settlement to the tune of $2.5 billion. A $1 billion civil penalty, which is the largest FTC rule violation fine ever in history, and $1.5 billion in refunds going to 35 million customers. 35 million Amazon customers, which could be up to $51 per person. Now, according to several news sources and probably the FTC, the FTC's case was pretty brutal. Apparently, they had internal Amazon documents where employees literally called the subscription tactics a bit of a shady world, and described unwanted subscriptions as an unspoken cancer. Amazon was using what the FTC called dark patterns. I don't know exactly what that is, but it was something around the lines of confusing interfaces that tricked people into signing up, and also made cancellation this nightmare maze that you had to just try to get out of. And a lot of people just exited out and became members. There are some key changes that Amazon must make. Number one, There's got to be a clear decline Prime button. No more, no, I don't want free shipping or anything like that. There needs to be transparent pricing and auto renewal disclosures. And then, of course, there needs to be easy cancellation using the same method customers use to sign up. And finally, there's going to be independent third party monitoring compliance. Amazon had to admit zero wrongdoing, but says many changes were already implemented years ago. And of course, this is just one piece of Amazon's legal troubles. There's still another massive antitrust case that's going to go to trial in 2027. So maybe we do get to see this play out in another courtroom for another reason. All right. Now, what does this mean for sellers, if anything? Well, one, I'm expecting, and this is not opinion of experts or journalists or anything like that, but I expect there to possibly be a small boost in sales. Let me explain. Right, there's going to be 35 million Amazon customers who are going to be getting refund checks averaging $43 a piece. $1.5 billion in fresh spending power that's going to hit the markets. All right. I believe that these are going to be rolling out like over the next 90 days or so. Perhaps some people start getting them before Christmas. And I know, well, $43, that's nothing. And that's exactly what the individual is going to think. Oh, it's just $43. I'm just gonna blow that on something on Amazon. I got free $43. But at scale, that's a lot of money. And that's what we take advantage of. We take advantage of that scale of Amazon. And now there's $1.5 billion going back into the market. Is this going to mean anything for long-term Prime changes? Now, I don't really see it being the case. Prime is, I mean, it's about as saturated as it can get. Whenever there's that 2% bump in Prime membership numbers, I'm taken aback as it is. So do we see some slower growth? Maybe. Is it easier to opt out of being a Prime member? I don't really see it being difficult now. When I go in and take a look at it, I never even think about canceling Prime, but I don't know. I just don't see anything. However, I think there is something else to this. Okay. I'm not sure if Amazon necessarily saw this $2.5 billion fine as a punishment. It may be a little bit of an insurance policy. And the reason I say that is number one, Amazon's market cap is 2.4 trillion. So that fine was 0.1% of their total value as a company. Okay. It was a rounding error. They literally make this much money in 3 days. But they may have purchased themselves a little bit of regulatory immunity for what is their core business model. The government backs off and maybe stops looking with a magnifying glass. But on the other hand, when this kind of thing happens, smaller competitors tend to be the next dominoes that fall. Who else is doing this kind of thing? We went after the 800-pound gorilla, okay, and we made an example out of them. So now, who do we need to go after next? Now, I'm not saying this just because, oh, that's what I think will happen. We kind of see this happen over and over and over again. If we want to look at the more Amazon space, so sort of Amazon adjacent, let's look at the big fish in sort of the automation area. His name was Kevin David. Okay. 50 some million dollar fine from the FTC. And then the FTC went after all the other smaller players and they started dropping like flies right afterwards. It's been several years now. And every couple of months, you hear another one. Oh, hey, we got this one. We got this one. Okay. So I would imagine we see something like this in this space as well. Those competitors aren't necessarily going to have the war chest to fight this like Amazon does, or be able to make the changes like Amazon does. So what happens? Well, they become less competitive than they already could. Now who is this? I don't know. I don't pay enough attention to really know who the FTC could go after next. But I've seen it before. I wouldn't be surprised again. So yeah, this was interesting. It's not what I was expecting out of this. A lot less fireworks than I was expecting. So yeah. Oh, did I lose you? You still there?
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah, this was interesting. Yeah, you know what? CP actually makes a great point there. Sounds like Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo. There's I forget the name of the comedian, but he has a joke about Wells Fargo about how they just won't stop breaking the law. They just keep getting fined, and they're like, hey, we open up accounts, without your permission, and they just keep doing all this stuff. It doesn't seem to have a real impact on operations. For if the corporation is big enough. You make a great point. The fact that they didn't admit any wrongdoing, yet for all the future cases that are going to come up, primarily the antitrust case, now Amazon gets to say, we didn't do anything wrong. We had already changed a bunch of the practices that we got punished for, but we still paid $2.5 billion. That has to be a big dose of goodwill towards any future cases. You did nothing wrong, paid $2.5 billion anyway. Feels like that's going to buy you some leniency, right?
It certainly does feel that way. Yes.
Yeah. So, I do wonder if my car wash subscription is going to be a little bit easier to cancel moving forward, but that's all right. This could be number one. Who are the people that are trying to cancel Prime? That's, and from a seller standpoint, those aren't the people that we're after. Those aren't people that we make a lot of money off of anyway. Mm-hmm. We make the most money off of Prime members because Prime members spend, a healthy percentage above the average transaction on Amazon anyway. So, but yeah, wouldn't that be funny if they pay out $1.5 billion in payments, and then they end up scraping, 50 to 75% of that back in sales on the marketplace. That's see, Juan's taking exception to Kevin David. Kevin David gets a name drop. Ty Lopez hit the news this past week.
Yeah,
it's a bad week for gurus, apparently.
It is. Yeah, it is. And yeah, Luke, you're absolutely right. To receive a class payment, users have to have used less than a certain number of Prime benefits. Yeah, I would imagine that's going to rule out most of us who are here, listening to this. Absolutely. Deborah, I wonder if they'll actually mail a check or if it will be a credit against your Amazon account. Oh man, I certainly hope that it's a credit on Amazon accounts, because then it'll feel less like real money. It'll be monopoly money, and it'll go to buy whatever board game or grocery item, whatever it is. Someone will just take that as a dopamine hit. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm also curious because we've got to be honest, and this is something I have no ideas. Since this was the FTC, there's not some scummy law firm in the middle of it, so there's not a Morgan and Morgan getting their 30% cut. But I'm curious how many of those 35 million people even know that there's money coming back to them. I would imagine that, I mean, unless it pops up on TikTok, 50% of those people or more are not going to know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't tell you how many notifications that I simply ignore, based on, I mean, half of them go into my spam folder anyway, because it's usually some random law firm or some sort of agency that handles distribution anyway. So
yeah, should be interesting. Let's see here. Yeah, I apologize, Juan. I didn't mean to step on toes if you're a big KD fan. All right. And if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. We are here to help you guys, and we have heard the people who listen that we don't get to questions soon enough. So we want to answer your guys' questions, and we'll answer them a lot faster these days. The second piece of news is something I just found interesting, and honestly, I think there is a bit of opportunity here, more so for those who are still doing retail arbitrage or are doing retail arbitrage. But apparently, 76% of stores can't find their own products. Now, here's what I mean. Okay. 76% of store managers are seeing more empty shelves than they have seen in a very long time. 59% say that keeping shelves stocked is harder than before. Now, anecdotally, I don't go to the grocery store very often. I typically have things delivered. However, when I do go, anecdotally, I am seeing this. That particular item, there are a few things that I purchase personally that I'm a little particular about. Imagine that. And I've been having a little more trouble finding them. One of them, which is really irritating, which makes no sense to me, is actually frozen chicken tenderloins. I have no idea how you run out of stock of a staple like that. But now another 24% of managers say that they can't find inventory that their system says exists at least one time a day. And 63% say that they're dealing with phantom inventory weekly. And store managers said that they're fielding 14 angry customers per month who can't find things. So if you've got to deal with 14 Karens, I can guarantee that there is an order of magnitude more of people who are frustrated and walking out without picking up what they wanted. 77% say that they have lost sales because they couldn't locate products fast enough. Now, here's the other side of that. The other side of that is 47% of retailers say that they feel more confident about holiday stock than they did last year. Only 20% say that they feel less confident. And of course, senior managers, or translation is those who are a little bit more out of touch, are more optimistic than the middle managers who actually deal with the daily chaos. Okay. Now, here's where I think there's an opportunity in all of this. Arbitrage sellers, by their very nature, are opportunistic and take advantage of inefficiencies in the marketplace. And this has inefficient written all over it. We can't find inventory. We don't know where inventory is, etc. Numbers are wrong and so on. I think that this Q4, there's going to be a lot of people who can go into stores and pick up the last 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 units of products that are really popular and just print money this year because stock counts are off, because they're not able to keep things on shelves. And when people can't find things, they go to Amazon. They go to us. So yeah, I've read 2 articles like this, and I was sort of that meme of the guy in the yellow suit behind the tree rubbing his hands together. Like, man, there are going to be some people making a ton of money this Q4.
Yeah, I mean, how fun is the idea of a store not being able to supply the customer with the product? Product goes, the customer goes to Amazon, store finds said product, has to mark it down, the arbitrager buys it, sends it into Amazon, and ends up selling to the exact same customer. Yeah, I can't help but think that workforce plays a huge factor in this, right?
Mhm.
They don't, it's not covered quite as much as it was closer to the pandemic, but there were staffing issues all over the place. The return to work movement, I'm still yet to see anything suggesting that there's strength behind it. So it seems like there's still a whole lot of turnover. There's still a lot of businesses short-staffed. It's like a conversation that we got into in the OAC chat. Where it came up. We're talking about fulfillment centers, and basically we were talking about the slow ones, of course, and how long it's taking stuff to get checked in and whatnot. And I brought up the point that you have to factor in the massive turnover rates that Amazon sees. The industry average is about 50% as far as like warehousing and stuff like that. Amazon on average runs closer to 100%. Okay. And what that means is if you take a fulfillment center and however many total employees there are, they are going to, on average, replace every single one of those positions once over the course of a year, which is insane to think about. Now, obviously, some positions will be, churned multiple times. Some positions, will have people there for a couple of years, but the average is about 100%. And there are areas, I think it was the Phoenix area. We reported on this a couple of years ago. There was actually an article that came out that said, I believe it was Phoenix. Don't quote me on the exact location, but somewhere in the Southwest, they were actually running closer to 150% churn rate. And it got so bad that at one point in time, it was projected that Amazon would exhaust the entire labor force of the surrounding area in a few years. Like that's how fast.
That's insane.
I know. Yeah, it's amazing to think about that they will completely exhaust all of the possible employees in a surrounding area. So, but I bring that up because, and I was making that point in the chat because think about the people doing the job. I mean, they're not hiring Mensa students. Like there's not a bunch of Harvard, Yale grads and stuff, right?
You're telling me that they're not using rocket surgeons to pack boxes?
I can't confirm, but I highly doubt it.
Okay.
Anecdotal at best, but I'm willing to wager on it. So think about it. I mean, it's not a highly skilled position to begin with, and then you're constantly bringing new bodies in. So I have to imagine it's tough to do the job well, and then especially, you throw in working conditions. If you want to talk about that, you throw in quotas and all that, I mean, it's very easy to get inefficient, and again, throw back to the article of over in the UK or whatever it was, where the person posted on Reddit, that it was easier to deny stuff without looking at it than run the risk of approving somebody and actually having your work analyzed by a superior. Tell me the same's not true in a fulfillment center where you can just say, oh, 0 units in this box, kick it under the conveyor belt and move on and catch up on your numbers. So, yeah,
So while you were talking about that, I got a little curious and I was wondering, is Amazon out of line with other logistics companies? Now, I need to take this with a grain of salt because I haven't clicked through any of the links to, double check or anything. But Perplexity says that the turnover rate for a UPS package handler or somebody who works inside of one of UPS's warehouses is reported to be greater than 100% per year. Um, and then I said, well, what about FedEx? And it came back with some data that said a part-time package handler at FedEx, they are somewhere between 95% and 200% turnover rate at FedEx. General warehousing in the United States is somewhere between 40 and 49% turnover rate. And if we compare that to the overall turnover rate in the US, the overall turnover rate is 13 to 17%.
That seems extremely high for UPS and FedEx.
Well, so I've got a little inside baseball because my dad has worked at UPS for coming up on 40 years inside of a warehouse. Never decided to never drive or anything like that. Was a union steward for years. It does not surprise me one bit. It doesn't surprise me that UPS is lower because they do have a pretty strong union, and there is a ton. There's just a ton of protections and things like that. I know FedEx, I don't think that they are union in most places. And so there's not a whole lot of, like they can run those guys real hard.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we have, there's a UPS, there's a distribution center not far from here. And you just see it's weird because I do remember them hiring quite a bit. So that kind of falls in line. However, back in my mortgage days, UPS drivers had some of the highest credit scores I have ever seen. I mean, it was like, and there weren't any outliers. Like it was just like you got a UPS driver and you just started licking your chops. Like this is gonna fly through processing.
Well, my UPS driver Jim just retired. One of the greatest handoffs ever, because I've never had a UPS driver retire on me, but I have had them move to other positions or things like that. But Jim literally brought his replacement to the front door, knocked on the door and said, Chris, this is his replacement is John. He says, Chris, this is John. John, this is Chris. And maybe he said this to more than just me, but it made me feel pretty good. He's like, this is going to be your favorite stop on the route. And so that was nice. But I know that he was making top rate of over $40 an hour. Plus like 6 weeks of vacation, and a pension now that he's retiring. Like he was doing all right. He was doing all right for himself.
Yeah. It's you see, it's the pension. The companies that still have pensions seem to have really good, long tenured employees. Which funny how that works, isn't it?
Right. All right. Let's see here. EB. I've been moving stale inventory to get ready for Q4. When will when are we going to launch Q4 and all that? So tomorrow you will be getting some links from me, probably in the evening. As for like our first live, I still need to talk to Eli about that, but it'll be within the first week. But leads will start on Wednesday. And I will get you all the links and all of that to access the content tomorrow evening. It'll be very simple. I've already started laying it out. There are a couple of different channels to make sure that things are easy to follow. There's going to be a chat There's going to be a place for replays. There's going to be a repository for leads. And there's going to be a way to open up tickets in case you have a private question, trying to make it a lot more simpler, a lot more clean than running it in a WhatsApp group. So that'll be there in your email tomorrow. EB, Inventory Lab tells me there are issues with items showing gated on Inventory Lab, but not on Amazon Seller Central. Inventory Lab is working on a fix. Do you have any updates on this issue? I'm not on their team. I thought Inventory Lab was working on a way for people to get ungated easier inside of Inventory Lab. I don't know. That's weird, but unfortunately, no. I do not have any updates on this issue. I don't know what to tell you. They're going to have to reach out to them, and their on-site customer support is not any good. So you're going to want to go to their Facebook group and ask there.
I mean, there is another. That's something else we were talking about in the OAC chat. There is obviously an issue with Amazon and the ungating process.
Yeah, there is something askew.
Yeah, because RevSeller recently added the option to either go to the selling application or go straight to add a product, because there were some reports that going straight to adding it to your catalog had a higher approval rate than the traditional selling application. So something's clearly going on, and I feel safe saying it's most likely an Amazon issue. And then from there, it's all of the tools that have to access Amazon. They need to update their processes to fix whatever Amazon eventually fixes.
Yeah. Or what I'm curious about, what I always think when this kind of thing happens is, what is Amazon changing on the back end that is causing front end disruptions?
Yep.
So what I'm curious about is, do we see a better or perhaps a more streamlined ungating process? I don't know, maybe in the new year. And because we've talked about this before, and Amazon has even admitted that everything is duct taped together. So they tunnel into one place and a piece of duct tape flies off somewhere else and it breaks something. So I'm curious what happens.
Yeah, at the least, I hope they're just cleaning up the process in general, because it's been a little whacked out for a while.
Yeah. Big T, can you use KPF to find new listings in a certain category or subcategory and then put some qualifications on it? For example, toy listings, brand Mattel, created in the last 15 days or so. Absolutely, yes. There's a filter for created, and you can pick a date and show everything created after that date, before that date, in between certain dates, just about any way you want to chop it up. It is absolutely there. That is actually one of the, and I don't expect you to have it, of course, but if you do have the Keepa SOPs, that is one of them.
And the Mets have officially missed the playoffs.
Oh, did the Indians they're playing the Indians there, right? Did the Indians actually beat them?
The Guardians, Boomer.
Oh, sorry.
The Guardians did win, Tigers lost, so they completed that historic comeback. The Mets, it was down to the Mets and the Reds on who was going to get the final spot in the NL playoffs. And the Mets, after forking over more than $500 million to Juan Soto, have missed the playoffs. So congratulations to the Reds.
Can't believe I called them the Indians. That is, I'm going to get canceled.
How dare you?
I know. I still have an old hat with Chief Wahoo on it.
Yes.
Let's see here. There's so much opportunity when you're willing to make a loop of stores that are out of the absolutely. Stores out in the boonies are some of the best places to find stuff. And
Yeah.
Polly, can you actually find profitable products at Dollar General? Yes, absolutely you can. One of the things that I would suggest is wait for some of their mega clearance stuff, that happens every now and again. Those are usually pretty good ways to make some money.
And those $5 off 25 Saturday coupons.
Yeah.
Do some damage.
EB, have you gotten a lot of toy compliance requests? I got one, and for this one, Amazon's giving 30 days to comply. If 30-day grace period is given, that should help right around the holidays. So I've not gotten a lot. Don't sell a lot of toys, so I actually don't have any at the moment, at least the last time I checked. Friend of the show, Jeff Storch, with a massive catalog. Thousands and thousands of ASINs. He was showing like 130 requests in his account. So I don't know that this is going to be as big of a deal as we were expecting. I'm hoping. I've still got my fingers crossed, and the other thing is it is ASIN level, not seller level. So if you get that 30 days to comply and you just sit on your hands and let someone else do the work, and very likely, I'm sure that someone will get it taken care of, at least in most cases. All right, Carlos, I'm going to push back a little bit here. Buying at Dollar General is 100% safe. There are zero issues with those kind of documents to prove supply chain for a Section 3. You shop at Dollar General or Ollie's or TJ Maxx or Ross, Home Goods, Meijer, Kroger, Target, Walmart, etc. Those will all work just fine. Now, are there some stores where you need to go an extra mile and make sure that you have photos of the item with the store tag on it, because the store tag has a different SKU that will match up to the receipt? Yeah, absolutely. Ollie's is a great example of that, TJ Maxx, etc. However, I have seen all of those used to beat back Section 3s and inauthentic complaints without issue. Of course, a guy from Michigan would ask, what is a Mensa student? They don't have them in your parts. But look up Mensa, and it's a society for people with large IQs. JP, if you get on a listing that has been consistent for a long time, but a retailer has a sale that brings a lot of sellers, bringing the price down, the listing has good velocity, is it best just to wait? All right, so this is, in my opinion, a bit difficult to answer because it depends on what rules you have set up in your business. Okay. There are some people who refuse to lose money to the point where they will just pay storage fees and wait and then pay the opportunity costs and all of that. And then there are other people who will say, well, if the price is coming down, I'm following it down and I'm going to try to sell through. I'll tell you what I do personally. All right. This way I don't really have to think about it. 0 to 60 days we're trying to make a certain ROI. Now, if that means that we're following the price down to get sales, but our price has not hit our minimum or our minimum ROI, then we'll follow that price down. Now, we do use a repricer that tries to bring that price back up and yo-yos around and things like that. And will get sales, above the buy box. Chances are you were actually in a buy box, even if you were priced higher than what other sellers were. But that's a whole nother point. And then once that item gets to 60 days, we go to break even. At 90 days, we're lowering the price to less than break even, because there are things such as opportunity cost, there are holding costs, and things like that. And so because I have those rules in place, there's not a whole lot of thinking about it. And we don't have to be like, oh, well, we're gonna wait on this because I think there's, this is gonna happen and whatnot. I would rather have the capital back, because a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, I think. And I'd rather have that capital back so that I can use it on something else. Does not mean that I cannot come back to that listing in 90 days, in 180 days, and restock or hop back on that listing when the effects of that sale are gone.
Yeah, it's it's really tough to find an argument against the faster velocity. Like that's, even if you sell it for low ROI just to move it, you can always come back to it. I mean, that's a great point. If it's been consistent for a long time, there's no guarantees, but logic would tell you that it will continue to be consistent in the future. And we know far too low of a percentage of Amazon sellers go back over their old leads and their old inventory looking for replenishable inventory. So you could actually take a little bit now by being aggressive, or at least setting your rules and then letting your repricer do the work and letting your process do the work. And then you can come back in and get the numbers that you closer to what you saw when you sourced it in the first place. But that ends up being a double dip at that point. It's compounded already.
I was thinking the other day, I was actually watching a video on private equity. It was actually a comedy video. And I started thinking about what private equity thinks about, because one of the biggest things that they think about in deals is return on invested capital, which is different than just a regular old ROI. And we're thinking ROI all the time. I wonder if we could start thinking as Amazon sellers on our return on invested capital in a given year, if we might do things a little bit differently and worry more about velocity and holding costs than I didn't make that $3 that I was expecting. I only made $2.75.
Because you'd be forced to zoom out at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important exercise for sellers, is to, not get in the weeds, and not get too granular with things, because you tend to obsess over things that are going to work out the way they're going to work out. Like if you're following it down and your liquidation is 60 days, just let that run, and then you get that capital back. But if you're zooming out and you look at it, because say you have to settle for like 12% because you decide to follow it down and just turn it over as fast as possible. If you restock in 90 days and you get 60% ROI on the same unit, average the two, you're averaging 36% ROI on your two orders.
Exactly. So. Chris, I talked about this already, but I wanted to make sure you didn't think I was skipping you over here. we're going to be posting the leads inside of a Discord channel, and I will get you the links to that by tomorrow evening. Carlos, can you show us how to use KPF for seasonal items, please and thank you? I'll tell you what I'll do. These Sunday and Wednesday shows are not really for screen sharing. So I can't do that here. But I will put that on my list of videos that I will make for the public YouTube channel. And bear with me just a moment. Let me, or maybe not. Well, oh, geez.
There, I think I got it.
Oh, sorry, guys. There we go. Thank you. I think, was that you, Chris, or was that Luke?
Yeah, I got rid of it.
All right. Thank you. Well, I got all distracted there. Give me some time and I'll make a KPF video. There's probably a Twitter thread out there about finding seasonal items on KPF. But not gonna be able to find that for you right now. And guys, I apologize. Let me turn these comments off on stage. Getting attacked over here for some reason. I must have made somebody upset. That happens sometimes. On Juan, yes. Q4 group's going to be hosted in Discord. Yes, absolutely. Jalapali, what do you guys know about FBA booksellers losing buy box to merchant sellers? This isn't losing the buy box to merchant fulfilled sellers isn't just something that happens in to booksellers. It happens across both, booksellers and people who sell, CPG and all of that. The buy box is a lot more nuanced than we used to think. And so there's speed of getting the item to the buyer and things like that. And so it happens. Price is also a factor, but not necessarily the biggest factor. And probably a little less of a factor in things like used books. But I mean, it's going to happen. But then there's people like me. I will buy a used book, but I typically only buy a used book from FBA sellers. And so I will use the little filter that only shows me FBA items, even when I'm looking at used books. And the only reason that I do that is I was once sent a book from a merchant fulfilled seller, I'm pretty sure it was an old empty bag of diapers. Like it was the plastic bag from diapers. And they just like wrapped it up. I'm like, this is not eBay. I'm like, if this was eBay, okay, I get it. But it was not that. Uh, 20% loss, the lowest we go. Not necessarily. I will go lower if it's over that 90 days, or if it's over like 120 days. But I really don't want to. We're getting hammered here.
Yeah, all sorts of accounts.
All right. Ellen, What about Amazon sending the inventory? What about Amazon sending the inventory back and then sending it back when the price is higher? Well, the problem with that is it's no longer cheap to have your inventory returned to you. It used to be. It used to be 50 cents a unit. It was no big deal. But now it costs a whole lot more than that. Also, you have to wait, I believe, 180 days before sending it back to Amazon. So now you've got money that is tied up in inventory. Okay, so let's use this as an example. Let's say you buy something for $10 and you send it into Amazon. You've got $10 invested in that item. You've got $2 of inbound shipping, a dollar to make it easy, a dollar for prep. Okay, so you're into this item for $13, and then it doesn't sell. And 3 months go by and you're like, okay, it hasn't sold. Well, now I've got my carrying costs. Let's call it 6 cents. We'll say it's outside of Q4. Now I'm into it $13.06 because of my storage fees. I'm going to have it recalled to me. Let's say it's just $2 to have it recalled. Now I'm into this thing $15.06. My cost on this item has gone up by 50% over 3 months. Okay. So that's the difference here. Like, you've now just increased your cost of goods sold by 50% because you don't want to take a loss. Okay. Or you lose $1 on the item. Okay. You have 13 invested into it and you take $12. Okay. Those are your two options. Now, let's say that you have it shipped back to you. Well, now you have to hold it for another 6 months. So what is your opportunity cost? What could you have done with that $12 that you could have gotten? Could you have turned that $12 over, let's just say 3 times in 6 months, okay, at a 10% ROI, okay? If you could do that, all right, you're looking at, let's see, 12 times 1.1 times 1.1 times, whoops, that's why we don't do public math. So you take that $12, you turn it over 3 times at a 10% ROI, and you're at $15.97. Okay. Your original $13 investment turns into $15.97. Now, it was going to be more on the first one. Okay. It takes more to make up for a loss. Okay. However, you're even further in a hole if you have the item shipped back to you. And I am starting to babble and probably getting confusing, but I don't know that having inventory sent back to you and waiting until the price is higher is the right play in most cases.
Yeah, I know a lot of sellers actually take they'll actually set a pretty significant negative percentage when they're liquidating before they decide to actually remove the inventory. And it comes down to everything that you were just talking about, the expenses and then obviously the capital, I know you hate this term, but like the human capital, the time it's going to take to actually handle the inventory too. There's, you have to factor costs somehow there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess the only caveat to that, and we're maybe moving into beating a dead horse territory here, but I guess maybe the only caveat would be if for some reason some other marketplace had jumped up in either velocity or value of that item. which happens. It's rare. It's rare that an item is going to sell for more on eBay than it will Amazon, but it does happen. So I might even look that route too.
Yeah, what a good example. Some Bath and Body Works scents. You'll have a lot of the holiday stuff, which is only around for a limited period of time, and it can tank on Amazon, and you can actually make more money if you pull it back and sell it on eBay. Made just over the last month or so, I've made several $100s moving Bath and Body Works stuff on eBay, actually.
Heck yeah. Chris, are you finally coming around to the term replen?
All right, we're good. Straighten up here and let me sit up a little bit. Okay, Juan, I appreciate the comment. I see the LOL. I have always loved the idea of replenishable inventory. The term replen is a marketing ploy to sell courses with most of the time minimal effectiveness. So you have you have to remove the art from the artist kind of thing, right? It's obviously replenishable, like to not have to source again, that's going to save so much time. However, I think I just felt in the industry, that word and the concept was pitched to a lot of people, and I feel like I feel like I'm doing more than I even need to here. But like replenish, like how do you source a replen? Like you buy a course, and how could anybody possibly tell you that you're going to be able to buy this product, sell through your inventory, and then a month, 2 months, however much time later, you're going to be able to buy it again, and it's going to be profitable? If somebody could actually tell you that, their course would be 5 figures. It would cost $10,000, $20,000. Yeah, I would be in on that so fast. Replens are discovered by having a handle on your own data, right? You can't source them in advance. You just have to be diligent about the stuff you bought before. You have to keep good records, and you have to be a good steward of those records, and find out when there are opportunities. We kind of got away with some marketing there, and I think some people it falls into, there's a corner of this industry that pitched this business as a little too easy, and it's, and that's and why, right? Because we got attention, we got, there's a million new sellers every single year that come onto the platform. They're not all active, I understand that, but the word's out. Like Amazon FBA is not a secret, right? It got popular. A bunch of people made a whole bunch of money, but to sell it as a turnkey, easy side hustle is irresponsible and unethical. So, and I know you just made a joke, and I'm sorry I went that deep with it, but I don't ever mind repeating that theory.
Deal Hunter, is there a little risk doing A to A? I'm going to have to read into your question a little bit, I believe. And I think you're trying to figure out what is the least risky form of sourcing, perhaps. My take is that entrepreneurship, by its very nature, is just the acceptance of risk. Okay. We are risking capital. We are risking time. We are risking a lot of other things, no matter what your vehicle for entrepreneurship is. whether that is Amazon or Shopify or a local service business, whatever it is. So is there a little risk doing A2A? I mean, yeah, there is risk in every sourcing method. The question is what kind of risk are you trying to what are you trying to de-risk is the question. Are you trying to de-risk a suspension from an inauthentic complaint? And in that case, you're at the mercy of a customer, really. If I'll tell you what, the dumbest inauthentic complaint that I feel that I ever got was a shirt that I sold. Okay, I sold a T-shirt, and I know exactly where I got it from. Okay, I got it from a legitimate source, and the person complained that it was a little too small, and it must have been inauthentic. It must have been a fake because they know their size. This is something they've been wearing for 30 years. In that 30 years, they haven't gained 10 or 15 pounds,
Quit shrinking my laundry.
Right. So like, are you trying to de-risk, having to prove the authenticity and worrying about receipts from Walmart or something? I guess we need to dive into that a little bit deeper. But there's risk in every sourcing model, no matter what.
Yeah, and if that's just like a surface level question, you pretty much have to deal with all of the same possible hangups that you source inventory from anywhere. There may be price tankers, there may be saturation. Too many sellers may have been tracking that price on Keepa. You may be one of too many sellers, and that could depress the price, even though it jumped back up to where you want it to be profitable. That doesn't mean it's going to stay there necessarily. And there's a risk of the fact that we don't know why Amazon's liquidating. They may just be liquidating that batch because they have a new one coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And they may come back in stock and they may go right back to the price that they always were, and that may not be profitable for your numbers. So yeah, it's not. It shares a lot of risk commonalities with OA and RA traditionally.
Mm-hmm. Ahmed, any advice on how to deal with returns, especially if the buyer opens and uses the item before returning it? I always forget what the exact rules are. Okay. I know that Amazon does not reimburse for items that are considered customer damaged. Okay. So if I'm not mistaken, if a customer buys something and uses it, that's on you. That is part of being a retailer. And that's something that Amazon sellers don't like to hear, but it's the unfortunate truth. If you opened up a brick and mortar store and you wanted to compete with the Target and Walmart, you would have to accept returns like Target and Walmart. And that means eating some used items. Now, you do have the ability to be able to move used inventory in other places. Okay. One, you could use Amazon's grade and resell program if you wanted to. And you could allow Amazon to grade and resell your item in used condition if it's eligible to. Secondly, you could also sell on other platforms. You could sell used items on eBay. You could sell used items on Whatnot, I believe, if you wanted to go down that path. There are certain used items that may actually sell for more on certain platforms. So yeah, that's really all you can do. Now, let's say that these are, and I'm talking FBA for the most part. If these are merchant fulfilled, then you're going to want to read up on the rules of what you can charge a restock fee for. Okay. Because there are some restock fees that you could charge if things are opened and not returned in the same manner that you sent them out, etc. JP, I keep getting emails that my reserve period went from 14 days to 7 days, but it stays at 14 in Seller Central. Is there something I need to do? Because all I get is the same notification. That sounds like something you would need to open up a case about. If you got, and one, I would double check that it's in the US marketplace. Like, are you, is that email coming to you in the US marketplace? So check that. And then if it is, I would open up a case and see what they have to say about that. Ellen, what do you do with returns that were Amazon's fault? I'd have to know what you mean by Amazon's fault. 4 times this month, I had returns because they didn't receive the product. Yeah, Ellen, I'd have to know a little bit more. Like, is this merchant fulfilled or is this FBA? If it was FBA and they were just bad addresses and they go back to Amazon, it should go right back into your inventory. Those things should not get returned to you. If they were damaged in some way, either by the carrier or by Amazon, you should be reimbursed for those type of things. So yeah, there's your question is very, very specific and needs a bit more clarity. Deal Hunter, do you buy items Amazon to Amazon only from Amazon, not third-party sellers? That is going to be up to you and your comfort level. I used to be of the mindset that I was Amazon only. And Saul changed my mind. Saul said, if there are third-party sellers, typically FBA only, not really merchant fulfilled sellers, that have really good feedback, it should be a pretty safe bet. But you're going to want to look at your own risk profile and decide whether or not that's something you're comfortable with.
And just for the record, I am not.
Yeah.
I mean, A2A flips, it's not a large percentage, of the methods that I use to source. So I think there's enough opportunity simply going Amazon to Amazon only, to quench my thirst on that front.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Chris, before we wrap up for today, I wanted to chat about some quotes that I've been thinking about. These came from Shane Parrish, and I thought maybe we could just kind of bounce some thoughts off of each other as we are wont to do sometimes. But Shane Parrish tweeted out Charlie Munger's fundamental algorithm of life. Repeat what works. That was kind of one of his frameworks, if you will. And then he goes on to say, Shane Parrish, this is the guy who came out with FS Blog or Farnham Street Blog. But he says, pair that with Peter Thiel, who says, once something works, people often underestimate it. And the reason I don't know, when I read this, it hit kind of hard. And I'll tell you why. Recently, I have had some very, very nuanced questions about things like Keepa, and people be like, well, but what do you think about this fractal reverse donkey leg in the sales rank? And I'm just like, there's velocity here. Like, just sell some stuff, and really wanting to like overanalyze and stuff like that. And we kind of, I don't know, I think selling on Amazon for the most part is kind of a solved business, when it comes to FBA. Like we've kind of shared like everything. between our podcasts and, these 2 times a week live shows. Like, we've answered just about every question that's out there. And it's sort of this solved game, but once like people find that it works, well, then they're like, well, no, there's got to be some secret I'm missing something, you know? And so where, I guess, how do we fight back on that? And how do we bring the midwit meme to real life? And get people on either side of just like, you just got to do more of this. Stop trying to, figure out the head and shoulder pattern of the price history and what's going to happen next.
Yeah, boy, if I knew the answer to that, I would be a very, very rich man. Yeah, I think it's just it's in our nature, and I didn't have it tied to these quotes, but the same concepts have been kind of running on a hamster wheel in my head lately. It's unfortunate that it's in vogue right now, especially to complain about Amazon. And it's, and I know a whole bunch of factors, right? The negative is far stickier than the positive, and you'll remember a negative 20 times longer than you will a positive. I understand all of those metrics. But I think it's just too easy to take for granted, the position that we're in. And that goes regardless of what you're doing. If you're doing it full time, like we are, just every once in a while, remember that you could be punching a clock right now. You could be really, really happy that it's Friday, or, in the present, you could be really, really like you could have the Sunday scaries right now because your work week is starting all over again. And you're going to have to figure out, how to get ready for the coming work week. And if you still have a full-time gig, be happy that you have that safety net, that you can experiment and you can get your reps in on a part-time basis, because this is, in my opinion, the greatest side hustle you could possibly come up with. I used it for many, many years. I thought delivering pizzas was, but this is way, way better than that. And it's just, and we always say, watch your inputs, it's so easy to just hear people complain, and it's like, oh yeah, typical Amazon. But, and it's just, you're kind of reducing this to this just stereotypical, like almost like 9 to 5 stereotypical malaise, of just going through the motions. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, except for, just simply taking a bit of time to appreciate it. And the way I do it is, I kind of, I go back and forth. I'm either ignoring all the negativity, and then when it gets to me and I feel a little feisty, I push back. And I think that's kind of why I think so. And I'm probably not one. I'm probably too close to the situation to actually be objective about it. But I think that's kind of why we carved out the niche that we did. Because we don't buy into the negativity. We analyze it. We try to figure out why, and then we try to give some best practices on how to work through it. It's never going to be perfect. I mean, this is a massive, massive company. Like, go back to the beginning of the show and think about when, the $2.5 billion fine that they agreed to pay in the FTC case is 3 days worth of revenue. Like, things are going to be broken. You can't run a business that size. Like, there are people being paid 7 figures working at Amazon that have no idea the problems that we have. they've never even heard of it. They'd have to have, half a dozen of their, admin assistants come in and research it and then debrief them on the issue before they could even say anything intelligible about it. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's and that's kind of like, that's what it's always what I tell myself, because I am so prone to overthinking things. And it always goes down to, getting back to the basics. And part of the basics is just shut up and source, like just do the stuff that makes you money. And, and it's a lot of the quotes that I'm saving lately are, the fact of like the one in the newsletter this week, it was Friedrich Nietzsche was saying that overworking is essentially procrastination. There's no honor in overworking. And you could take that a couple different ways, but the one way to take it is you need to kind of laser focus and make sure you're spending your time and your energy on the stuff that is actually making you money. And that can be exercised in multiple ways, whether it be, pulling the trigger and spending, $20 some odd on a repricer if you're a low seller with Aura, and getting that off your table. And so you can concentrate on the money makers. We just, a lot of sellers, it's so easy to fall into the minutia,
Mm-hmm. I will say Shane followed up that tweet with another one. He said, add to this quote from Ken Griffin, the founder of Citadel. What I've learned over the years is we spend way too much time analyzing what goes wrong rather than thinking about what goes right. And I think that goes back very well to your point of we need to watch our inputs. Because what we do see so much on social media is so negative. I had this problem and I complain here and I complain there. And we pass right over the good things, which I get. It's our lizard brain, looking out for snakes that are going to bite us from the bushes. But still,
that's why kids hate vegetables. I just read that the other day. It's actually a survival instinct because typically vegetables are bitter and most poisons are bitter. So little kids have more taste buds than adults, and they're actually wired to avoid bitterness. So it's kind of human nature for kids to not like vegetables most of the time.
That's fascinating. Now,
but I'm sorry, just put a button on it. The one thing is, we say mind your inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing that was it's kind of gnashing my teeth over this weekend, it's just like the negativity was kind of getting to me. So I think it's good that you brought this up. When we say mind your inputs, make sure you're auditing yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind the managerial tactic. What do they call it? The sandwich method, right? Where you say a positive. Whenever you have to deliver bad news, you give a compliment, then you bring up the issue, and then you finish with another compliment. And because I think a lot of people, if we went out there and we posted in somewhere, like FBA Today or something like that, we'd be like, a lot of people you're too much negative and stuff, and I think a lot of people who are guilty would sit there and go, well, not me, so I think it's important to audit your own outputs, because what's in your head is also an input. It's sometimes the biggest input, good or bad, but make sure, see what you're saying, go back through your own log and say, all right, I'm complaining, and maybe it's internally, maybe that's kind of the way that we need to do it is if you have something to get off your chest, which I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but if you have something to get off your chest, maybe recognize the good parts about it, maybe put something good out into the ether, before you vent. You know, I believe there's a lot of good that could be done with a little bit more balance.
I'm glad you brought that up. You know, that our inner monologue really is, you know, one of the loudest inputs that we have, or most frequent inputs we have. Matter of fact, it's part of the reason I don't really like take a walk or anything without a podcast in or a book, is because my own inner monologue is also my harshest critic. And I'd much rather have some positivity than to have to listen to that for an hour. But yeah, that's a great point. Now, before we go, I would suggest to you to go and listen to How to Take Over the World's latest podcast. It is part 1 of a 3-part series on Friedrich Nietzsche, and it was fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, really good. We'll have to, once you listen, let me know. We'll chat about it, because it's one I was actually like, I'm gonna have to listen to this over again. So
nice.
All right, one last question, guys, and we'll wrap it up for today, or Chris and I will go on for hours. Blink, could you explain what is buy the pinch? How to take advantage or avoid troubles around the pinch? Yes, Chris,
it's a thing.
Yes,
it's
sir.
A thing. Like
Yeah,
that.
This is all you.
It organically came back to us. We willed the term the pinch into existence. I am so happy. All right, what's the question? Yeah, can we explain what buy the pinch is? How to take advantage or avoid troubles around the pinch? Yeah, so first to explain the pinch, and it's you have to, it's a visual of the Keepa graphs, right? And essentially it's the when you have the segmented Keepas, right? The Keepa graphs, you have the 3 kind of stacked together. The top one will be the price, including buy box. And then at the bottom, whether you have the middle one or not, some people do, some people don't. But then on the bottom, you have seller count, right? And I'll try to do this right. So as the seller count climbs, if the price starts eroding, buy box starts dropping, you have this shape, right? Seller count's increasing, price is dropping. So it's coming together, and that's kind of like the pinch. So how do you take advantage, or how do you avoid troubles? I think the first thing to do is your first question with the pinching shape in those graphs would be to analyze how you avoid the trouble first, right? Before you even think about taking advantage of it. And essentially what you need to analyze, I think, as far as I'm concerned, is you need to figure out, can I get in and out fast enough before worst case scenario happens, or before we hit unprofitability, right? So in that sense, you need to also kind of factor in velocity, because I know a lot of times with when the pinch happens, most of the time it's with fast moving inventory, so it's, am I going to FBM this? Am I going to FBA it? If I do send it into FBA, can I get it in fast enough? What's my repricing going to be? You'd probably want to, if you're trying to get out, you'd probably want to make some sacrifices if you don't already with your minimum, so that you can just kind of let your repricer do the work and just liquidate and just zero out your existing inventory. So basically it comes down to a judgment call, how do you take advantage of it? I don't know, you might want to jump in on this. What are strategies to take advantage of the pinch?
I think that one's a little bit more difficult because the problem is that you're trying to figure out what the future holds for a particular product. So we kind of know what's happening. Like if you're right in the pinch, you want to stay away from it because, the number of sellers is going up, prices coming down due to demand not increasing enough with the supply. Now, perhaps you could start looking for where, I guess, the pinch is being released. I need to think of a better term for that. Where you start to see just the crest coming down over the other side of the number of sellers. And you could say, okay, well, when the number of sellers gets to X, this price should go back up. The only problem there is you're guessing. Now, are you guessing based on, what's happened in the past? Yeah, probably. But I don't particularly like to do that. I like to wait until there's a little bit more evidence that the price is actually going back up. So I'm not really sure it's the most prudent thing to do to try to make some money off the pinch, unless there's another marketplace where the price is higher and you could sell items over there. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, also, and one method that you can do is which you have to do it. You have to be careful because it'll be really easy to lose track. Obviously, most of the time when it's a fast moving product, there is significant demand. When it pinched, usually it was a steep discount somewhere, probably a big box store. A whole bunch of people found it, or a whole bunch of lead lists all said, "Ooh, look at this," and put it on a list, and then everybody kind of converged on it. That means that it is probably available at a steep discount somewhere easily accessible. There is a consideration, if you want to try to take advantage of that, is to kind of do a short-term hold, depending on the item, preferably not, anything that has an expiration date, but, there's certain, and it's not just toys, there's other stuff too. If there's a logical scenario where demand will continue, eventually all those clearance shelves are going to be empty. It's going to dry up for all the sellers. So there is an opportunity to maybe hold for 30, 45 days and kind of let everybody race to the bottom, let it pinch, let everybody liquidate. And there's going to be a couple people, it only takes a couple to freak out and be like, "Ooh, let's get rid of it at negative 10%. Right. And then everybody follows suit. You can kind of wait for that and then kind of pick through the battlefield afterwards and come back on it. Because you still got it at the discount, but then you can just kind of, by waiting a little bit, you can kind of let it bounce back up to some nice crooked numbers when you finally do come in stock.
Deborah, is there anything to do to better prepare for the Q4 group? No, I don't think so. We'll get things rolling.
Well, have if you have the opportunity, get yourself a shiny new 0% APR credit card.
I would do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I've
got one coming in the mail. I'm excited. It's a good one.
Yeah. Both two different ink cards, Chase ink cards, right? They have boosted sign up bonus. They're both 0 annual fee. And I think they both come with like 12 months, 0% APR.
Yep.
I mean, that's one thing. If you have the capabilities, that's one good move you could pull off right now to get ready for Q4.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I got. I got the what do I have? Already have the business preferred. I've got the cash coming. Excited for that one. So all right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up there. It's been an hour and a half. It's been fun hanging out with you guys. I will tell you what, if you want more like this, this is really just a glimpse into the conversations that we have every single day inside of OAC Plus. We do it for 90 minutes here, but we do it for tomorrow night. Chris is going to hang out for an hour to 90 minutes sourcing. I'm going to hang out for an hour to 90 minutes on Thursday, doing a coaching call. And then the chat is usually fairly lit and there are just questions and answers. And there are people who are way smarter than us in the chat who answer questions. Honestly, we mean Sarah. Sarah is way smarter than us.
Yes.
And it's great. The community's great. And there's a ton of other stuff. Like I could go on and on about it. But if you're interested in joining and be able to have conversations like this at a high level with a lot of nuance and a positive group of people, head over to oachallenge.com/plus. We'd love to have you. All right. All right, guys. That's it for today. We'll catch you on Wednesday to do this all over again.